Transportation is here. Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the May 8th, 2019 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. All commissioners, with the exception of Mr. Christie and Mr. Chasson, are present. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Could we have staff introductions, please?
Stacy Webb, Secretary for the Planning Commission.
Cody Morton, the Attorney for the Planning Commission.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner.
Sean Chereau, Engineering Review Agency.
All right. Moving on to item number 5 on the agenda is the chairman's comments, and I have no individual comments, but Mr. Fournier, do we have an update from CPEX on the master land use plan?
We do, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'd like to also remind everyone that we have a special meeting that's scheduled for May 29th, and the topic of that meeting will be just the master land use plan, where the commission will be considering the approval of that plan. With that said, I'd like to introduce Ms. Janet Thorpe with CPEX, who's going to give us an update. All right.
Thank you. Good evening. I have a short PowerPoint. Seems like I always do when I come. What I'd like to do today is just update you briefly on the public meeting we had and then the next steps in the planning process. We are getting towards the end. We have a draft prepared, and it is online and available in a number of other ways that I'll talk about. This is the cover of the plan. We had it available for viewing, and then had the recommendations on boards at our 2 open houses last week. And then we also have placed copies in the library, the Donaldsonville Courthouse, the Governmental Center, and you can download it online. So we're hoping to get a lot of input from that. There are a number of ways that people can give us input on the website. They can just submit it, comment on the website. We've gotten already several comments from that way. They can send them in the mail, or they can email them to us or call, and I'd be happy to call them back and talk to them. You've seen the vision. This is kind of the backbone of the plan. It's a general map of where growth and the types of growth and development might occur. I've gone over the development types. Those are consistent with the colors on the map. So the green is rural residential, state subdivision, residential neighborhoods, neighborhood hubs, commercial, retail, and then employment industrial are the kind of broad categories of the types of development anticipated in the future. This is a outline of the plan. So there's an introduction, a vision that summarizes both in pictures in that map and in writing what the vision of the parish is, and that was taken from all the input that we've had throughout the process. We have a section on creating the plan, and then really the core of the plan are the 6 topical chapters that are land use, housing, transportation, drainage, recreation, and economic development. And each of those chapters are organized in this fashion, where we have where we are now, kind of the existing conditions and more of the historic picture, and then issues for planning for the future. We have guiding principles that we've also created in conjunction with the public input we've received. We have issues and concepts, and then the next chapter is the goals and strategies, where we have a specific vision for that topic, goals and strategies, and some of the strategies have actions. So those are real specific to land use, transportation in each of those chapters. And if people want the punchline, that's a good place to go and look at those goals and strategies, because those are really the policy setup that will drive development decisions in the future. Both the transportation and the drainage chapters have been completed in conjunction with HNTB, who are doing work on, who have prepared the transportation plan, master plan, and then are also working on drainage issues. So really what the plan does is guide how the parish will look in the future, what it values, and how it might be developed and looked at. The transportation chapter, in addition to the development plans that the transportation master plan has, we've incorporated complete streets and green streets as far as having rainwater holding areas incorporated on streets where possible, and so introduce some new topics there. The stormwater management, we've got, and these are just kind of little tidbits of, I'm not going to go over all the goals and strategies because I think I've done that both in the public meeting and in the past, but the stormwater management chapter has a number of policies it's recommending. One is having multi-purpose stormwater management functions where you can combine recreational areas and stormwater management. You can have stormwater management facilities on public improvements. And then the recreation also has multi-purpose recreational areas. That guy up there is actually doing an exercise machine, and while he's watching his kids. So the idea is that multiple generations and families can be exercising at the same time, and I'll be safe and happy. One of the things that is an important thing to look at is in the vision. At the back of the vision, we've laid out some of the top strategies that should start immediately and start guiding the parish towards the vision. And the first ones are updating the zoning and subdivision ordinances, the drainage ordinances, and then incorporating some low-impact development techniques, which are the green infrastructure and that type of thing, into both public and private properties. We have a section on code enforcement, and that's both enforcing the zoning regulations, but also property maintenance, ditches, that type of enforcement. We have, there's a lot going on in the parish right now with the master land use plan, the transportation plan, drainage, and the sewage plans. And so a lot of people that we've worked with have said, you know, we really need to start coordinating and to get the biggest bang out of the buck of all of those projects, to coordinate, make sure they are working together and those improvements are being made together. So that's highlighted here, as well as coordinating with the school board for the location of future schools. And then finally, there's a priority strategy on engaging in education programs where to really make sure that people know how they can help the overall drainage system by maintaining their own properties. And there's some other suggestions in there, as well as a suggestion for a parish-wide parks foundation to help raise funds for improvements of the existing facilities and more. And so more details are in the plan of those suggestions. So the next steps are, we really encourage written comments on the draft plan and the vision map. And so we're logging them all, and I'll show you that in a minute. The draft plan is on the website, the libraries, and several other areas. We're logging the comments, and then, as Jerome mentioned, the public hearing for the plan before you is May 29th. This is just an example of the log that we're doing. The last column, we will have any changes that are needed based on those comments. And if people will get these into us before the hearing, we can have them written, organized, and recommend changes as needed to the plan ahead of time. I have heard different people say they've seen suggestions of changes that need to be on the map and changes that, but if we don't see them, we can't recommend those changes. And so now's the time we really are, now's the time that comments are important. We'd really like to see those and be able to sit down with people and work through them. And that's the extent of my comments, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Real quick, Ms. Janet, you said that you're supposed to have all the comments for us. When do you think you'll have them?
Well, we're running this list, but we intended to send you the list in the packet a week before that public hearing, and then we'll post it online so people can see it as well. And that's not to say if people want to comment after that, they can comment up to the time of the public hearing. But if they get it in early, then we can go ahead and get it in a log and organize it and respond to it so that then they can understand what our response is, so additional comments could be made if they desire.
Any other comments? Thank you, Janet.
Thank
As
you.
always, very informative.
Okay, thanks.
Appreciate all the hard work that you're doing on that. All right, item number 6 on the agenda is a public comment on any agenda item. We have, I think, 3 public hearings scheduled for tonight on one family partition and 2 preliminary plats. But if you would like to be heard on any other agenda item, now is the time to speak, and I would ask that you please keep your comments to the 3-minute time period. Ms. Stacy, is anyone signed up?
Yes. Catherine Gopel.
Good evening. Heads up, Ascension Parish citizens. Urban planners have been hired with $450,000 of your tax dollars to develop a plan for the future growth of our parish. They propose the urbanization of our parish using high-density development. The present Planning Commission will adopt this plan and cram it down our throats. This is their vision for our parish. Speak up or it will be your future. Their dream will become our nightmare. Currently, our zoning is 1 home per acre in conservation, 2 in rural, and 3 in medium-intensity residential. Parts of our code allow higher densities. When first proposed, the densities in the plan were listed from 4.5 dwellings per acre in residential subdivisions to 10 dwellings per acre in neighborhood hubs, more than tripling our current densities. Categories have changed in the current plan now, and densities are being hidden from the public. The proposed plan has 6 categories, 4 for residential. Commercial may have high-rise multi-story buildings, and buffers between residential and industrial areas are blurred. Residential, rural residential, previously predominantly conservation, is located in some of our wetlands and floodplains. In order to build a home, here you must have at least 5 acres. Lots smaller than 5 acres will not be able to subdivide, and family partitions will be affected. Estate subdivisions, previously rural and conservation, must have at least 1 acre per home. Homes will also be allowed in small lot neighborhoods with common open space preserved in perpetuity. This preserved space will restrict property owners and what they can do with their property. Nothing, forever. Residential neighborhood has no density mentioned. Previously conservation and medium intensity residential. Neighborhood hub is a compact area, primarily pedestrian-oriented places, easy to walk and bike. Buildings of 1 to 5 stories. Citizens participated in the process, but were not listened to. Infrastructure first was the rallying cry. Cramming another 60,000 people into our parish without adequate roads, sewer, and drainage for current residents is sure to make existing problems worse. Ascension Parish will be urbanized if you say nothing. Densities will be increased. Buildings of up to 5 stories will be allowed. What you do with your property will be limited. Fellow citizens, educate yourself, get involved, and let your voice be heard. Thank you.
Teresa Robert.
Thank you. I was personally involved and participated in the development of our original zoning plan in 1998. Meetings were held in every district of the parish. Residents participated in the process, and the plan reflected citizens' ideas for the future of our parish. Citizens were assured that zoning would be the tool used to guide growth throughout the parish and would protect our community if we supported it. For over a decade, the Planning and Zoning Commission has encouraged and crammed large subdivisions into and throughout Ascension Parish, ignoring master plan guidance principles to preserve rural character to the parish, protect public safety and property values, and encourage growth only in areas where infrastructure can support it. This proposed plan eliminates many previously stated principles, downsizing from 12 of them to 4. Ascension Parish has been called the bedroom community of Baton Rouge for many decades. The majority of citizens say they moved to Ascension Parish because of the rural character, the quality of life, and the good schools. They chose not to live in a city. That's why they moved here. Citizens have once again participated in all 4 public meetings to create the proposed updated $450,000 public-funded master plan. The majority of residents soundly expressed and repeatedly their disappointments concerning the lack of adequate infrastructure throughout our parish, where citizens are gridlocked in daily traffic, compromised public safety, impaired drainage, no parish-wide sewer, and overcrowded schools. At none of the public meetings held did citizens say, "We want to be urbanized, triple our densities per acre." This plan does not represent the ideas and concerns given by 90% of majority of residents who participate in the process. It reflects the points pushed by CPACs, this planning commission, in the 10% minority. The proposed master plan withholds pertinent information. Proposed new densities per acre are more than tripling, ranging from 4.5 to 10 homes per acre. Several categories have been lumped together, and previously given density numbers have all of a sudden been omitted. The overall proposed plan uses compact development, mixing commercial and residential uses, promoting and encouraging growth for an additional 60,000 residents, although we do not have adequate infrastructure for the 110,000 residents living here now. The map in the plan is unclear. Many parish roads cannot be found, and the main and the largest proposed zoning changes are both depicted in 2 different shades of yellow, which made it indistinguishable. Could that have been done purposely? If that's not enough, they have the word draft across a southern part of the map that just happens to be where our Burnside community is also located. So again, this is not enough for us to be able to make proper comments. Do we want to be suburban? Yes. Do we want to be urban? No. Is rural character seeing some trees? Is it having a detention pond to walk around and having a park? No, that's not what rural character is. Thank you.
That's it. All right, moving on to item number 7 and 8, general business staff report, and update on our subdivisions that we have.
In your packet, you have the latest updated subdivision status list. I've got, again, this month, those with asterisks on them have changed as far as the status. The 2 notable or 2 items of note on the list this month are Christie Place and Forest Wood, which had gone a good while without having submitted their construction documents. I know we'd been asked this last month at the meeting. They both have submitted their construction documents this past week. This past week. Everything else, I imagine, is self-explanatory. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Thank you. Mr. Bosher, appreciate that. Moving on to item number 9, engineering staff report. Mr. Sherrill.
There's no report this evening.
Thank you, sir. Item number 10 is approval or denial of the minutes and written decisions of the April 10th, 2019 Planning Commission meeting.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Scheck-Snyder, second
I have
by
a
Mr.
question.
Bishop. Before we get to the second, Mr. Dumas has a question.
Yeah. On item number 11F, is the sidewalk is the sidewalk a punch list or is it not a punch list?
Oh, we're not there yet.
We're not there yet.
Oh,
We're on the minutes.
We're on the minutes.
I'm sorry.
So you're withdrawing your question on
I
item
withdraw
number
my
10?
question.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes?
No, hold on. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, we didn't get a second.
Yes, it was seconded by Mr. Bishop. All in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, now we're to item number 11, which is the consent agenda, and I will read it before we get the motion. 11A is an affidavit of mortgage declaration before Brian Bateman, lots A2A, A2B, and that's at Lakeview Drive in Geismar, Louisiana. Item number 11B is affidavit of mortgage declaration for Michael Ellis and Mona Ellis, lots 3 and 4, 42738 Highway 42, Prairieville, Louisiana. Item number 3 is affidavit of mortgage declaration for Dean Joseph Meir and Kelly Gotro Meir, unnamed lots 11.453 acres, 11610 Beco Road in Sanama. Item number 11D is an affidavit of mortgage declaration for the Meadows at Oak Grove, tract Y3, Louisiana Highway 42, Prairieville, Louisiana. Item number 11E is a final plat approval for Reese Lane by Quality Engineering Surveying LLC in Council District 7. Number 11F is a Stony Point Estates second filing by MR Engineering and Surveying LLC in Council District 3. And 11G is a final plat approval for the Meadows at Oak Grove, first filing, MR Engineering and Surveying LLC, Council District 7. Question, Mr. Dumas.
I just want staff to clarify if the sidewalk on 73, is that a punch list item for this second filing plat or not?
That item you're referring to those Stony Point Estates?
Yes,
Yeah, that item has been turned over to DOTD. It was
understood.
DOTD who recognized the fact that the sidewalk was missing. It's in their right-of-way, and so we're letting DOTD address that issue.
Well, notwithstanding that, I think I'd like to support DOTD. We've been fighting that battle for quite some time, and I'd like to make sure that it's a punch list item, so I'd like to pull the item.
All right, you make a motion to pull 11E from the consent agenda?
Yes.
All right, the motion to pull
11F.
11F, I'm sorry. I have a motion to pull 11F from the consent agenda, and we'll put that on. Does that go on now as a public hearing, Cody, or that comes back next month as a public hearing?
Well, first off, are y'all voting to pull it, then you're gonna vote on consent agenda, then come back to F individually?
Yes.
That's the intention?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, go ahead and make a motion to pull it, go ahead and adopt the consent agenda, then come back to it.
All right, so I have a motion to pull 11F by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Furman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none. 11F is pulled from the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda absent, or with the exception of 11F?
I have a question on one of these. I'd like staff to clarify. On 11A, Brian Bateman, on the packet we received on this, the total acreage, it looks like it comes up to about 3.79 acres of the 3 lots. But on the affidavit, it's showing 13.19 acres. Could you explain that?
I don't have an answer to that one right now, but it may have just been a clerical error on our part.
Okay.
So we'll make that correction.
Okay, so the 3.79 would be the correct amount for the total lot?
Yeah, it's 3.19 instead of 13.
19? Okay.
Looks like a clerical error.
About 379. Yeah. Okay. Just make
Yeah, so it'd be 3.79.
the approval with that condition.
The condition of 11F.
Mhm.
All right, we have a motion by
11A.
Mr.
11A.
You want to move 11?
No, I don't want to move it. I'm just to
I
make
got
the
it, I got it.
correction.
So the motion is to approve the consent agenda with the correction of the clerical error on 11A and without 11F being in the consent agenda by Mr. Furman. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Schexnayder. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, we'll take up 11F then. I can take that up now, Cody?
Yes.
So, item number 11F, which is the Stony Point, final plat approval for Stony Point Estates, second filing, MR Engineering and Surveying LLC. Mickey's here. I don't know if you want to ask him about that or what you want to do with that.
Well, there's
Specific question, maybe.
well, there's a sidewalk on 73 that I know that the parish and everybody's been after for quite some time. And I understand, you're working with the state, but, it's been a long, long road to get to it. And I'm just wondering, I'm prepared to make it a condition, one of the punch list items for this one, that, you can get this plat signed and recorded the day that sidewalk is ready. I mean, I need a timeline when that sidewalk's going to be done.
Well, I think what we'd prefer to be would be to have the stipulation be that we resolve it with DOTD. We've satisfied the parish's requirements for everything that was included in the construction plans on the preliminary plat, final plat. We've done everything that the parish has required. So I guess we would ask that the stipulation be once we satisfy DOTD, because we're still in the process. We're not sure exactly what they're going to require at this point.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve with the stipulation that,
Guys,
go ahead.
the council passed the ordinance that we can't put
do
any
final
conditions
plat.
on final plat
Right.
approvals. So you either have to take it as is or deny it. That was passed by the council a couple
Yeah,
months back.
a couple months ago. Well, the sidewalk is a construction item.
It's
That
actually
doesn't
not
count.
included in the construction plan. It's actually not a construction item.
I'll move to approve.
Got a motion to approve by Mr. Dumas, second
Second.
by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes for approval.
Thank you.
All right, number 12 is a public hearing to approve or deny the following family partition. Item number 12A is the Ewell S. Com, Cambry property, lots A and B, by Philip J. Thomas, PLS. This is in Council District 5. Staff?
All items have been addressed on the plat, and the division does meet the requirements of the code.
Is the applicant here? Is there somebody for the applicant here tonight? Does the applicant have to be here for us to act?
Not necessarily.
All right, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this matter?
No.
Then we will close the public hearing on this. Any questions, comments, and/or motion?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Mr. Furman. Second
I'll second.
by Mr. Bishop. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, number 13, item number 13 is a public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats. Item 13A is the Pelican Point Golf Community Major Revision Large-Scale Development Master Plan by Parish Engineering and Surveying LLC. This is in Council District 2. I will note, as I've done with other issues that have come up at Pelican Point in the past, that I have a conflict of interest on this, so I will not take any part in I will recuse myself in any part of the decision-making and comment period, but I will run the meeting in my ministerial capacity. So you are on, sir.
All right. Good evening. My name's Clint Kennerly. I'm with Ferris Engineering. I'm here to represent the developer. As y'all know, we had previously came, I think, in January with a proposed revision to this master plan that was once pulled, and then we have since met with various HOA representatives as well as others to try to vet some. We can't hear. Sorry about that. Well, I'll start over. My name's Clint Kennerly. I'm with Ferris Engineering. I'm here to represent the developer. Like I said previously, this master plan that came before, I guess in January, we've since made a lot of changes. We've met with HOA representatives, tried to vet some of the concerns that we had heard at the previous meeting, and made the revisions to produce this map that you have before you. One of the most important items I wanted to discuss first is that what this map represents is more in essence of a concept plan, and so that any further development that is shown on here will have to come back with a preliminary plat. So this doesn't release anybody to go through to construction or move forward until we come back to the Planning Commission. On here, we've listed and tried to itemize and condense the revisions that were shown in the bottom of the map to where we can, if you'd like, I can go through each one and just sort of give a summary of what each revision represents and try to help clarify, and if you have any questions on each one of these individual items, it might be the best route to take, if that's all right. Item number 1 on the revisions. This was more of a housekeeping to update the approved construction and preliminary plats that have since happened since the 2005 master plan that was last approved. Not only is this kind of a concept zoning plan, but it's also been used to be somewhat of a record keeping to try to keep an overall map of the development as accurate as we possibly can. So this item, we took some of the individual preliminary plats and updated them per the approved and construction documents.
Did you want to put this on overhead?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
We're going to place the plat on the overhead projector so that everyone can see what changes are going through.
See what happens. Oh, yeah, you did that. Okay, there we go.
There we go.
And then you can do it this way, or you can can do each one of the individual items like that. It's totally up to you. This is
Okay.
the focus plus and minus right here. And you can focus on each item, either that way or this way.
There we go. All right. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Eric.
All right.
And I know it's hard to see. This is a large map, but I have some zoomed in pieces I can show as we get through each one of these revision items. Number 2 is probably the biggest, I guess, concern or change that's taking place on this master plan. Plantation Commons on the 2005 map was 84 townhomes on this portion. What we would like to do is reduce the number, but also go to 74 single-family detached homes. Of course, the footprint is changed a little bit, which is also addressed in another one of the revisions. In this item, we have looked at the drainage to an extent. We're looking at improving an existing canal and possibly adding as a feature the golf course to sort of meander through the golf course. And in turn, it gives us some ability to isolate some drainage areas to where we could possibly, when we come in with a preliminary plat and drainage study, make some improvements from the amount of capacity from a detention standpoint. Try to make it as beneficial to the community as we can. Number 3, this item, and I'll give you a zoomed in piece on this one. This is tract M1B1A, located here. In the original 2005, it was actually not necessarily included in the approvals. It's not marked as a zone. But what we wanted to do here was clarify the use of it. Currently it's being used as a boat RV type storage with possibly some maintenance. The concept that we're looking at is a maximum of 24 units with a maximum of 2-story heights. Also, some concerns were made that the access of it, they did not want this to be within the community gates. We tried to note that any access that it's given would have to be outside of the Pelican Point gates. And of course, anything at the state, the DOTD would restrict those access points as well. Also, the boat and RV storage, if this does come to fruition, we've set aside an area near the existing maintenance building to allow for a new location to provide those services. Item number 4, it's going to the previous map that was in 2005. We updated it to show the current 2007 map of the flood zones, given that the newly proposed recent elevations haven't quite been, I guess, approved yet. And for a later date, we can update it to match the new flood zones according to how they come out. Item number 5. This is in regards to the footprint of the Plantation Commons. Of course, going from townhomes to the single-family residential, it took some more space. This is basically saying that we're going to need a larger area to put these 74 single-family homes as long as we stay within that number. We've also incorporated some areas of park within there and some green space, as well as used an area to convey the new channel that we would reroute the drainage through. Number 6, this is the portion on the west side around the airport where the former golf course holes were. At this time, there's no plan to move forward with what to do, but we do want to set it aside as a separate private tract with the ability to move forward at maybe some later date. We've also proposed and hope to, if we do move forward, set aside 11 acres for a park to turn over to the HOA in the development. Item number 7, the clubhouse area was never dedicated as a certain area. All that did was dedicate this area around the clubhouse as clubhouse area. Number 8 is, yeah.
Could you tell us where these revisions are shown in our packet? I thought I was following them.
Oh, it's
But we
on.
only had 6, and then
That's my fault. What I did in your packet with my staff comments was, I separated the housekeeping items, and those are the lower portion at the bottom of the page and
Right.
on the page 2.
Right.
And the substantive changes, where they're actually changing the land use of a lot, are on the top portion. And the numbers that he's referring to is in the adjustment block that's on the bottom of the plat. Let me give Clint a copy of that.
I see revision 1 through 5 on the plat.
It's on.
I think you're looking at the old plat. Look at the very end of the packet.
I'm looking at 1 through 5. 1 through 5, yeah. Yeah, down at the bottom it has 1 through 5.
Number
That-
6.
oh, I can't read that. Wow.
I'm gonna give him this and let him go off of this that y'all have in your packet.
Yeah.
That'll make it easy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard to read. I'd have a magnifying glass.
Like when I went through and did this, down here, these are the substantive changes and use and all of that. You can go off of this list. You can have that and go off of that list, and that way they'll be able to follow along with you a little bit easier.
Okay, well, I'll just quickly start at number 1 on the ones that we have kind of ran through. Number 1, revise the undeveloped portion of Plantation Commons from townhomes to single-family attached. That was the 84 townhomes on the west side to the 74.
On the west side?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah, that's that portion right
No, I know that. What he's saying on the west side, so that'd be which ones?
These right here. Look, right here.
Yeah, okay. Those are shown as individual lots. Is it attached or detached?
Those
Detached, single
were
family.
detached originally.
This is
And now
actually,
they're gonna be detached lots.
Well, no, it says attached in here.
Revised undeveloped portion of planning homes to single-family homes, yeah.
Okay, so you're showing individual lots on the plat, but it's saying in revision 1, attached. I just want to know which one.
That's clerical. That's supposed to be from detached to attached. The other way around.
Yeah, it's from detached to attached. I just want to make it.
Just to be clear, it's going from
want to be clear
detached
on
to
it.
attached to detached.
it's single, yes, detached single
So it
family.
should be detached instead of attached.
It should.
Right?
Let's see, number 2, that was the tract M1B1A. That is currently the boat and RV storage.
That's the one on 44.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This guy right here. And so the proposed concept would be 24 attached units with a 2-story max.
Right. Okay.
Let's see, number
The
3.
is
Number 3 is in regards to adjusting the golf course to fit the larger footprint of the Plantation Commons residential tract. Well, it'll have a lot of dependence on a layout and what DOTD is allowed. As to whether or not they would give them access directly to the highway. I'm sure they would want some interconnectivity. It really would come down to a potential layout and what we could work with DOTD. Correct. We just wanted to note that no one would be able to, or no access would be given behind the back gate, if anything. Let's see. Number 4 is the OCG1 tract. That is the old golf course holes.
Right here. That's
Yeah.
this one.
That's it right there. So this is where the former golf course was around the airport property. This is just to designate it as a undeveloped separate tract of land.
So it's going to remain that way?
Yes, sir. We just wanted to clarify it on this map.
Yeah, okay.
Number 5, there's tract S2. This is the property next to the existing clubhouse, I'm sorry, not clubhouse, sales center in the front. The goal is to build a very similar new sales building on this piece of property. Of course, at the same time, we wanted to ensure everyone that all of the landscaping and everything that is out there right now would stay the way it is and that we would stay within, closer to the existing sales center. But this is the proposed use of this new sales center. Number 6 is the designation of the clubhouse area that wasn't done on the original 2005 map. The remaining items were kind of a housekeeping items to update the old 2005 map to reflect the approved preliminary plats and final plats for these subdivisions that are already out there. Royal Lake Estates Part 1 and 2, Greens Parts 3 and 4, Cypress Point Parts 1 and 2, Hidden Cove, to update the flood zone. There was a previously approved entrance from the village. It was going to be a private entrance, but since then it's been expressed that that's not desired. So that was removed on this portion to where it will no longer encumber Lot 99, and there's no plan for any access at that point. Number 4, that is to update the old map to reflect all the current zoning for the entire development. And at 5 is again to update any portions that don't match exactly with the current existing final plats for any portions of the subdivision. And that's just kind of the summary of the revisions. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Staff?
They have gone through, we've had a couple, 2 or 3 meetings. I know Clint and Mr. Diaz met with the Homeowners Association on a couple of occasions, and they have revised the map, and it is in agreement with basically everything that was, pretty much everything that was discussed in those meetings as far as the revisions go.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No.
Someone has their hand up back there.
Come forward, please, sir. It's this public hearing time, so you can come forward. If you want to speak, you should have signed up beforehand, but if you haven't signed a card, I'll still let you speak during the public hearing.
My name is Hal Dupuy. I live in Pelican Point. I thought at the last meeting, did you request them to come up with some travel or street studies, traffic studies? Was that for this meeting?
No, it's subsequent to this, to get approved, they will have to come in with a preliminary plat. At that time, they'll have to submit drainage and traffic studies and everything else.
Okay, and I know the last meeting, there was some proposed condos right by the tennis courts. That's gone.
Those
Okay.
are not there.
Thank you very much.
Does anybody else want to be heard on this issue? Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Jerry Folse, president of the Pelican Point Homeowners Association. I just want to say that Doug and the folks from the parish did meet with us. We went over the plot plan. We took a look at, there were some objections to, for instance, the townhomes near the clubhouse, that particular street that was just talked about that was going to go out to the village, and that was taken off. They pretty much met all of the, questions or demands that the HOA had. I can't speak on behalf of the entire HOA because I didn't poll all members, but I personally approve of this. And the board met, and there were no major objections when the board met. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to be heard? All right, we'll close the public hearing on this. Questions, comments, and/or motion by the commission.
I'm going to go ahead and make a quick comment and make a motion. I think that, as Mr. Foltz said, the HOA and Councilman Dawson and the developer really worked together with the community. There's several meetings, as Eric indicated, and everybody seemed to work together with an open mind and addressing all of the issues to achieve what's before us here. And I commend the community and the developer for working together towards to a common goal. So I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve in favor by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Furman. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. All right, and that brings us to item number 13B, Evelyn Estates subdivision in Council District 8 by McGlynn Taylor Incorporated.
Good evening. My name is Rudy Senko. I'm with McLean Taylor. We were in charge of developing the preliminary plat and drainage impact study. I'm also joined by Nick Felito, who's with Neil Schaefer. They did the traffic impact study, and Ryan Power, who is with the developer, First Horizon. Just general overview of the project. It's located off of LA 429 on the north side. It's about a half a mile east of LA 73. It sits in between Parks at Dutchtown and Dutchtown Meadows. Parks to the west and Dutchtown Meadows to the east. The site consists of a little over 24 acres with Bayou Godine running through it west to east. It falls into an RM zoning. I'm going to try to use this projector. Got it upside down. Kind of an overview here of the site and the surrounding area. So it's in the RM zoning, and which allows 3 units per acre. We're proposing 43 lots, which is at a density of 1.79 units per acre, which is considerably less than the surrounding developments, which are all fall right around that 3 threshold. I want to point out too that this development, all proposed improvements are to be south of Bayou Godine. All 43 lots with the excess park requirements will reside to the south of it. Some other things I want to point out. We're reserving the sewer treatment plant would be located at the southwest corner of the development. Over to the east, where we border Dutchtown Meadows, we're proposing that's where the park area will be, provide some buffer space. But in general, this plat was developed to meet the latest land development code, and we're only requesting one waiver, which is to put the sidewalks in the right-of-way, which is a request from the staff. Drainage impact study was developed based off the latest requirements and this past January, where we run everything for a minimum 25-year storm, and we must meet the pre-development 10-year storm, and this development will meet that. Also, the fill mitigation requirements are met for this. There's no fill larger than or higher than 3 feet, with an average fill of less than 2 feet. And then also these areas of fill where they're adjacent to other properties, they will be sloped down into rear yard swales and to make sure that we don't have any impact on a neighboring property. The traffic impact study was developed based off of the latest policy. I want to point out that it does refer to a 55-lot development. This is simply because the many iterations we went through prior to coming before y'all. The reduction in lots does change, but it's minimal, you know, and so the less lots you have, the less trips you'll have. But due to the existing traffic conditions of 429, we're proposing a right-in, right-out only connection to limit some of the conflict points and delay at this connection. And then that connection will be worked out through the permitting process and with DOTD. Also, in preliminary talks with DOTD, they did notify us that they're planning to put a signal at LA 429 and LA 73 within the next 6 months. Those are the highlights. If you got any detailed questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Steph.
All items of the code have been met as far as the plat go in the reviews. A couple of items of note as contained in your packet. One specifically is that developer is proposing the streets as public. This project is going to be subject to the creation of infrastructure development district. It was recently approved by council with the approval of the final plat. Unless at some point before he submits for his final plat, he declares that he wants the streets to remain private. Other than that, as far as drainage and traffic study specifics, ERA can answer any questions you have about those.
We'll open a public hearing on this. Ms. Stacy, has anyone signed up to speak on this? Then we will close the public hearing on this. Any questions?
Sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll reopen. Yes, sir. Come forward, please. Oh, come forward to the microphone, sir.
My name is Jeff Mealy. I've been involved with a couple of subdivisions going up around my place, and I would like to ask this fella, do you think that raising your property up 3 feet adjacent to another property is not going to affect it? Because I know it affects me.
Well,
and they raised it up on both sides of my road.
Yeah, and I understand that, and yes, that is taken into account with our drainage impact study. Any field must be mitigated through ditches, ponds.
Through a pond, and just to let you know, my pond at the end of my road that was not there before is 47 feet deep. And the pond adjacent to it is 45 feet deep. In my opinion, that's pretty deep for a pond right next to a major road. So, and you're going to build a dam next to some kind of bayou that, you know, I mean, when it floods, and it's going to get water, it's going to get rain, water's going to come up, and if you have 3 foot of property, well, that water can't go around it, can't go over it, so it's going to go around it.
Yes, sir.
That's what I see.
If you don't mind me asking, where's your property?
My property is off of Highway 42. I have Eagles. What is it? Not Eagles Landing. It's River Landing and this new subdivision, DSLD. And they just turned my road into, I call it Bayou Bill Morgan now.
Okay, so yeah, so we have to prove conveyance of Bayou Godine, all this water, all this drains to Bayou Godine. So part of our drainage impact study is
Fort Vincent.
improving the
Dutch
Lamar section, widening
Or
it,
Geismar.
where more flow can go through. And as of, if we feel anything, we have to take account for
This is on Cornview at
and we
73.
catch that with ditches or anything like that to make sure that it's routed. and it doesn't-
Sir, I wanted to ask you a question. You said you live off of 42?
I live off of 42, yes.
This subdivision that's being proposed is at the corner of Cornerview and
Yes, sir.
73.
I understand that, but what I'm basically saying is you're going to you're raising a property up. They affected me over there, which I'm just out of luck now on mine, but these people might have a say-so before they raise the property next to them. That's what I'm saying. They say 3 feet. They might come back later on and say, oh, I'm sorry, we don't need 3 feet. We need 4. I mean.
Well, perhaps engineer, Mr. Shiro, can you address I'm assuming the engineering staff reviewed the issues regarding drainage of the land and not dispersing any more water or blocking the natural flow of water. Is that correct?
At this time, they submit, this is a preliminary plat. So they said a preliminary drainage study, which is sufficient at this time. They're doing proposed ponds. They're meeting everything in the current ordinance. Current ordinance basically says they cannot send. Is that for me?
That's the 3-minute.
All right. Send any more water than what's going across the property line than what is there today before they do any development. And they're required to honor that around the entire perimeter of the development, and that gets reviewed in a greater detail during construction document time should this project be approved.
And then, so not only does parish ordinance require them to not discharge any more water than is currently discharging from that land, but by state ordinance, they can't block the natural flow of water either through or around that land as well. So they have to, by law, they have to account for that. That's why we have the engineering review agency to make sure that their drainage studies meet the legal requirements that the parish and the state has imported on them. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Troy LaBeouf, and I live in the Parks of Dutchtown. I'm one of the 7 residents or lots that will be affected along there. My lot is lot number 124, as you see on the map that you have currently in front of you. I'm also right in front of me is Audubon Park Avenue, which at the current time is a dead end, and it's fenced.
Yeah, right here.
Adjacent to the property that they're intending to build on. One of the questions I have concerning Audubon Park Avenue, on the plot as I understand it, that they want to make Audubon Park, which is now a dead end, they want to make it into an access road, a road for maintenance. When I bought my lot, I bought it with the understanding that that road would never tie in. It was told to us by our subdivision that it would never tie into another subdivision. But now I'm being told that if this subdivision is developed, that they're going to use it as an emergency road for maintenance. So will that be locked? Is it just only to be used, or will it be a public road for them to use or anyone to use coming out of that subdivision into my subdivision? And again, that's lot number 124 in Audubon Park Avenue is what I'm speaking of.
Behind
No,
you.
I'm lot number 124.
Behind you is a
Right here.
pond.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
I got you.
So again, my question is, will that road be used for public access? Will it, so right now it's a dead end.
Well, no, for the parish park requirements, all of those requirements are met south of Bayou Godine, so the park area reserved is south of you. The only reason for that is it will be a pond, it will be a pond for this development. Any maintenance, like cutting the grass, make sure the shoreline is stable, things like that, that's the intent there. And then we just blocked out a small portion there, allow somebody.
So again, your intent is to take down the fence and open the road into your subdivision from my subdivision, correct?
Access will be, there's an existing wooden fence.
There's an existing wooden fence and a tree line there.
The tree line, we'll have to look at that, see what is cleared and what is not.
Okay.
Yeah, access, I mean, if we were to build our road across Bayou Godine, the parish would want us to.
Okay.
We're not.
The parcel of land that they're connecting to will have no residences whatsoever. The parcel of land that they will access through Audubon Park Avenue will have no residents in it at all. It's only a pond
Okay.
and a marsh, and that's it.
Okay.
There are no residents back there.
Okay.
However, that grass will need to be maintained, and that pond will need to be cared after. So that's it. That's the only access they propose.
Okay. Am I out of town, out of time? or can I-
You can ask another question
Okay.
since you're asking questions and there's been.
One of the main things that he talked about, the lot size, are the homes that are being built in this estate, the value, will it be less than what the average home is in the parks of Dutchtown, which range anywhere from 220,000 all the way up to 320,000?
It would be in line with those numbers.
It would be in line, so my property value should stay the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
100%.
Who currently owns the property now?
It's 4 different individuals.
Okay, so they're still responsible for the maintenance of that property at this time?
Yes, sir.
At what point will you guys be taking over?
Part of the contract is contingent on this approval.
Okay, okay. And the reason I have concerns, because the trees on that property now are currently falling on to my home. So I'm actually in the process of trying to see who owns the property, but they're literally falling onto my home right now.
If this development were to be improved, the trees would be cleared.
Okay, okay. And when will, how long before that process takes place? Will
No,
we know?
I wasn't, I was asking the lady behind you. I'll give her a chance to speak, so you can
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay. How long before this process, when will we know if it's approved or not approved?
If we approve it tonight, you'll know it tonight.
Okay.
We're going to vote on it tonight, one way or the
Okay,
other.
all right, thank you.
All right. Yes, ma'am. You can come on up to the microphone, please.
Could you turn the Elmo on, please? Okay. Good evening. My name is Brenda Turnbull, and I also live in the parks of Dutchtown. I'm very concerned about this because we've been living there 13 years, and different things that were told to us when we bought the property and built the house, I see that those things don't work anymore. It's been changed. So I'm very concerned because not of the property being developed, but I'm very concerned with, I don't have my glasses on, but this is my house right here. We are the 5 houses that are involved. And right here we have, thank you. Right here we have, this is my property right here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 houses. I want an explanation of what this, and this means. Because, just as he said, the trees are falling on his house. Guess what? They have broken my fence on several occasions. I call my backyard Old McDonald's Farm. And you know why? Because we have raccoons, we have snakes, we have possums, squirrels, you name it, we have it. And what we did, it may have been a couple of months after we purchased and built the house, we put a fence because I was afraid of what might come into my yard. Now, being that the back of the property is facing the wooded area, I mean, I'm good with that. But the trees, we moved back, was it a foot? We moved a foot when we put the fence so that we wouldn't have to deal with the tree roots and all of those things. As this gentleman said, we're still having the problem. Those trees have damaged the fence straight across. The side is fine. But my fence, I'm going to have to, in the next couple of months, I'm going to have to put up a new fence. And I shouldn't have to because that's not my trees. And then we moved it back on our property, so I'm very concerned about that. But what I do want you to explain to me, I'm just going to put an X on here. This this, and this. This is right behind those houses. So I'm very concerned, all the new houses for this subdivision are gonna be built further down. I'm concerned about what this gentleman said. We didn't have any flooding for the 16 flood. But I have experienced flooding before because I had 7.5 feet of water in my house. I didn't move and build this house to have the same problem. When I go to bed at night, I want to sleep knowing I'm safe. So would you explain to me what this means, this and this, for these houses here? Because that's very scary to me.
Well, so this area, I'll point to it up here so everybody can see. Your first X
I
right
see
there.
the key right here, okay?
Yes, that is a proposed pond. That would be water.
Yes.
Okay. This area right here, that hatch, that's a wetland area.
Okay,
that
define
will,
wetlands.
Poor, it's wet, palmettos grow, swampy, low area that will remain as is, current condition.
They can't, I don't think by federal law they can do anything to that area.
Correct.
So the trees that are from my property, behind my property, all the way down to that area where there's a dead end on Audubon,
Yeah.
all those trees are gonna be removed?
Nope,
No, ma'am.
they will remain.
So even the trees behind my house are gonna remain?
We could take a look from inside your property line at those trees and how that affects you individually.
Okay, and my third question is, who's responsible for my fence?
You are.
We don't
I
own that
can't
property
maintain a
currently,
fence
but
with trees growing and breaking my fence.
we obviously want to make sure that our development is not impacting adjacent properties. So we can certainly take a look at it.
Okay, I don't know if it's gonna impact my property. I'm very concerned about this. But I'm very concerned about if you're saying, no, we're gonna leave those trees, this is gonna stay a swampland area, and then we're gonna have a retaining pond. What I'm afraid of, if you leave those trees there with the pond and with the retaining pond in the marshes, we're still gonna have old McDonald's farm back there. So I'm waiting for an alligator to crawl across the fence and come into my yard, because if it's swampy, now I'm exaggerating, of course, but snakes and all these things, so that's what I need to know. I've had a very, very peaceful life living there for 13 years. But this makes me very nervous, because when you build this subdivision is gonna be at the front, and what can happen is gonna be at the back, and it's behind my property, and I'm very concerned. And I will be
Thank you, ma'am.
keeping up with this.
Ma'am, we have a 3-minute time limit, and
Okay.
I'll let you
Thank
go way
you.
over that,
I
so.
appreciate it.
We've heard your comments, thank you very much. All right, does anybody else want to speak on this issue? All right, we'll close the public hearing then on this. Are there any questions, comments, and/or motion by the commission?
Excuse me, I've got a question.
All right, there is a motion on the table to approve by Mr. Furman. I will, Mr. Schexnayder, defer to your question.
Staff, it shows on here that the existing level of service is at F and an E, and in some cases below a D. According to our traffic impact policy, they cannot they can't build this subdivision unless they improve or mitigate it. So if at all possible, I'd like to get legal to just verify that and make sure that we are correct on this.
Correct on what?
So what I'm asking is that in our traffic policy, it says that if for all existing and future conditions, level of service at all city intersections, inclusive of the site access locations, shall be calculated for signalized and unsignalized intersections using procedures contained in the Highway Capacity Manual. The LOS shall delay and be reported for each turning movement and each approach. Each of our approach shall, and the intersection as applicable in tabular format, which is what we have. Capacity analysis documentation shall be included in the impacts, which we have. The objective of the applicant shall be to maintain or improve the existing level of service. An overall level of service D shall be considered acceptable. Where a level of service D is not existing or the existing level of service cannot be achieved with improvements, mitigation, A description of impacts, constraints, mitigation measured, analyzed shall be provided. So what that's saying is that the developer has said that a roundabout could potentially be done at one intersection, but due to some feasibilities, it cannot be done at another one. So they can't mitigate what they're saying is already an unacceptable level.
So I don't know if you have the traffic policy in front of you, but if you go to page 7, which talks about the actions based on the results of the traffic impact study, there's a mandatory requirement that says in the case where the existing level of service is below a D, the required mitigating improvements shall improve the level of service to a D or better. So they would have to improve the intersection to a D or better in order to get approval on this. So I would refer to the engineering review agency as to what they've submitted that they can do that, what improvements.
Okay. So the engineering review agency has said that they cannot and make this improvement. Is that true?
So, based on what they have submitted, there were 2 off-site intersections. One was a corner view over at 73 and corner view at Chester Diaz. I believe the 73 and 429, that's a corner view. The proposed solution that got that better was the
roundabout.
I believe is that the roundabout or the
That's
signal?
traffic light at
Roundabout or a traffic light?
73.
Traffic lights
I'm
at
sorry,
73.
73 and corner view.
Signal or roundabout.
Signal or roundabout would work there. The one at Chester Diaz, they did the analysis. They looked at a signal, but DOTD has a policy. Basically, they want a signal to be the last resort. They want you to consider some alternatives. A roundabout would be one of their preferred options. However, this project has some physical constraints at Chester Diaz there to do a roundabout due to the bridge, the water crossing, and probably the overpass of the interstate at that location. And so basically what they concluded was, yes, a signal would help, but typically DOTD does not, would not accept that. A roundabout would definitely do it, but has physical constraints that may make it not feasible. So that was the conclusions of the report of some proposed solutions.
But no matter what I'm getting at is that the developer would be responsible to bring it up to the level of service up to a D, plain and simple, before they could get a CO, correct?
Excuse me, can I make a comment on the policy itself? Nick Ferlito and Neil Schaefer. The way that policy is written and the way I interpret that is if the existing level of service is a D or below, the traffic impact study should look at mitigations to improve that existing level of service D. Doesn't necessarily say that the developer is responsible for implementing those mitigations, but the study should look at measures to improve that level of service.
I respect what you're saying, but it also says the applicant is responsible, and that's one reason we're also asking legal, and I want to get a legal opinion on this.
I think it's pretty clear, guys. If you look at the first sentence, it says you may disapprove under certain conditions. The first, that it overburdens the existing roadway, it causes reduction in the service of the affected roadways, or negatively impacts the safety. So you have permissive authority there. Or if it's below a level of service D, you may disapprove. But then it requires you, it says that they have to submit mitigating improvements to improve the intersection to a level of service of D or better.
It says they have to submit, and that's what.
Well, the required mitigating improvements shall improve the level of service to D or better.
It doesn't say they have to implement the mitigation measure. It just says they have to provide mitigation measures to show that it improves the existing level of service.
Well, as the planning commission, you guys do have authority to put conditions on preliminary plats. So if you wanted to make that a condition, you can. You can't do it on final plats, but you can on preliminary.
Okay. Can I speak to the developer? Just curious, because if you were to get some type of approval, there would be that stipulation that you would have to bring it up to that level of service. Y'all would have to be prepared to do what is necessary to bring that level of service. Is that understanding to you?
Yes, yeah. So I think what Nick mentioned and with what legal said, I think we're tracking along the same guidelines here. You know, as well for just feasibility, you know, gentlemen, we're dealing with 43 lots here. You know, it's a very small subdivision. Marginally, it changes the traffic calculations that are there currently, and it doesn't change a level of service for either of the intersections. So to expect that 43 lots could potentially, you know, pay for a major improvement like that in a state highway is difficult, but us as a developer, we'd like to work with the parish and with DOTD figure out what's on the horizon and what's out there and what we can do to help mitigate and offset some of that as well. I hope that answers your question.
Well, let me ask a question. I understand that you're also proposing a unique entrance, a right turn in, right turn out only entrance to your subdivision.
Yes, sir.
But that's not in our packet. And I guess, has the reviewing agency looked at that or looked at the impact of that traffic analysis?
A right in, right out was not submitted as a part of the preliminary plat of the traffic study as a proposed solution. So the ERA hasn't
You haven't reviewed it.
that concept.
Well,
It's part of the traffic study.
I believe it's in the comments too.
Well, it wasn't referenced in our packet, so.
Okay.
I don't recall. If there is a clerical error on showing it as a proposed solution, I apologize. I didn't see it listed on these tables as proposed right in, right out, and what that impact would be to the signal. So that's why I've not viewed it as a proposed solution. I was thoroughly just relying on these tables to show the results based on these proposed alternatives.
My biggest thing that we
If there's a right turnout, then if it's a right turnout only, I mean, you can only make a right turn out of the subdivision.
Right.
That's obviously going to affect the interchange at Chester Diaz and Cornerview.
It could be, but I'm relying on these tables to show me proposed solutions with results at these intersections. And at 73 in Chester Diaz, I see southbound left, eastbound left, a signal and a signal plus eastbound left and a roundabout. That's the 5 alternatives. I don't do one of these reflect the option of a right in, right out?
Just the left turn. Yeah. Go ahead.
So the analysis was based off of a traditional full access driveway at the proposed entrance of Evelyn Estates. But as based off of those analysis, the recommendation for the entrance was a right in, right out at the proposed entrance to the subdivision.
Well, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and make a recommendation to you guys that if you want us to consider the right turn out, right turn in, then I think you need to kind of do an analysis of what the outcome of that is with the tables and postpone this thing and come back next month. And if that, and if the reviewing agency, can do that, then, we're in better shape. But I just don't see how you can solve the problem with the interchange today. The alternative that I see is to require you to get that traffic light on Cornerview and 73 done before you start construction. And I don't know when that is with DOTD. That could take forever with DOTD.
We did get a comment on that, and I would like to say that, we had looked at the proposed entrance into Cornerview Road to make sure that whatever we proposed there kept the level of service that's in place, which this proposed entrance right in, right out does. We have talked to DOTD on Cornerview and 73, and based on their latest information, that interchange light is supposed to be there within the next 6 months. I would feel comfortable saying that the final plat would be held for approval until that light was installed, that interchange, based on the information that we have from DOTD. So there would be no residential construction starting, and we would be here in this same room actually seeing that interchange was there while we're signing final plats.
All right, but if you do that, and I'm just going to give you fair warning about that, if DOTD doesn't get around to putting that light in 6 months or 18 months or 36 months, and we condition approval on that light, you could be stuck.
We understand.
I mean, and that's one thing. We've had this come up in another development, Oak Lake, where there were conditions placed, and now we're 3 years down the road, and they haven't met the conditions, and they want to move forward. So, just so you understand that, as
Yes, sir. Thank you for the comment.
Well, if y'all are willing to do what y'all have to do to get it, then I will, if you don't mind, I'd like to make a substitute motion. I would vote to approve with a condition of approval that you must meet the level of service, bring it up to a D at this in your traffic study through whichever mitigation circumstances are necessary
Is that at 73 in Cornerview?
Well, there are multiple places at 73 Cornerview, and it also says at possibility at where's the other one?
Chester Diaz.
At Chester Diaz. So
that might be sustained by the right turn in, right turn out.
right. But whatever is necessary to mitigate those circumstances to bring the level of service up to a D, that must be done before final plat approval.
Yeah, we're talking specifically about 73.
I'm talking about where it says that the level of service is less than a D, it has to be mitigated up to a D. So if y'all come up to where it says Cornerview at Chester Diaz, it's at an F. If y'all can bring it up to an A right here, that's fine. If y'all mitigate it in Old Jefferson at Cornerview with improvements, if it's at a D and it goes down to an E, y'all have to keep it back at a D. If it's at an F, you got to bring it up past a D. Wherever it is on your traffic study, if you go down below a D, you have to bring it up to a D in whichever mitigating circumstances are necessary.
It's basically the two intersections.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have a substitute motion. Do I have a second on the substitute motion?
I'll second it.
Yeah.
Second, substitute motion by Mr. Schexnayder, second by Mr. Dumas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, substitute motion passes. All right. You have anything, Mr. Fournier? You're looking at me like...
Yes, I do. I think
not your,
when it comes to the motion, has the motion been approved or not?
Yes.
Or, well, never mind.
The preliminary plat has been approved with the conditions as stated by Mr. Schexnayder. All right, that's at the end of the agenda. Motion to approve, meeting adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.